if we're going to get real simplistic, if I save money in a traditional checking account and I spend out of it, then I'm not really saving. I'm storing, but I'm not building up. So I think this is where getting clear on what saving, investing, and gambling is. And I would say that, you just made something real clear to me. Because the internet is so the norm now, 16-year-olds have access to walking into casinos essentially. Because there is somebody in the market that is receiving their misguided.
Back to the fact of like, in today's world, when you look at finance, because of social media, which is the worst thing that's ever happened, all you ever see are snapshots of the highlights of people's lives. You don't see all the in-betweens. And so when people see that and they hear about different stories, everybody's thought process around finances can pretty much be summed up in they want to get the fastest route possible to massive amounts of money. It's not a bad goal, but is it reality? They hear the stories of the lottery. They hear the stories of investing in a moonshot and changing their lives. Like that is whatever.
Welcome to the Cashflow Legends podcast with your hosts Nate, Brandon, and Brock. Remember, our insights are not direct financial advice, so consult with your financial team before making any decisions based on the topics discussed in this show.
Welcome back to Cashflow Legends. You see two guys that are missing somebody. Nate is out of town today watching some state championship basketball for his kids' school that they go to. And I feel a little out of place, Brock. You called me out right when we showed up on a recording. You said, are you meeting somebody special today? I do have clothes that don't involve a hat or boots, but I don't have those on today. And I'll never be able to match up with Nate's hair, but I don't have a hat on today. So this will just make everybody appreciate Nate when they come back on and how nice his hair is, and it'll make him feel good about himself. So how's your day going already?
Day's going good. Yeah. And rocking. We have good weather right now in Nashville. We've got that rain coming in, but it's a warm front. So I'm okay if we can get rain if we also get warm weather with it.
Yeah. You been on the golf course much lately?
No, I haven't. I
haven't.
Ever since I got back from Phoenix, I haven't seen the golf course. But I would love to. I may Monday may have a special treat of a golf course. So we'll see. Okay. We're still working.
Okay. Well, if it happens, we definitely want to hear about it. I've got buddies flying to Legendz tomorrow, Friday, which is down around the Rio, close. And the good golfers or whatever they call them that are on YouTube, he ranks it like in the top 3 of courses he's ever played.
Oh, that's cool.
And I've played there, and it is unbelievable.
I'll have to go play there too.
You have to check it out. So,
right, what about you?
What about me? This week has been, so our oldest had shoulder surgery, as I told you and Nate. And so he's just beginning the rehab there, but they're in baseball season. And so I get to be at the baseball field all the time because he's there. And so my job that I get the privilege of doing is keeping the scoreboard, which to me, there's no better place to sit and watch a game at a small school.
I don't like doing it because then I can't stay engaged with the game. And I like watching all the things going on. And if I'm trying to keep score, I'll completely forget about the score and just be paying attention to the small things.
I think I have a little PTSD from all my high school coaching days. It was never the kids. They were always awesome. But sometimes parents have things to say that are so not logical out loud over and over again. So when I sit in the press box, I can truly enjoy the game, have the door shut, don't have to listen to the additional coaching that's out there. My wife, Leah, normally sits on the fence with all of her girlfriends, and she'll just text me if I need to be aware of something, that's going on out there. Because you miss a lot of the nuances when you're not right by the field. So I see both sides of that. Yeah. So we're steady at it. My daughter reminded me this morning that they only have 2 more months of school already.
Jeez.
Roughly.
It's hard to believe March is Sunday.
Man, I feel like the more, this is not our topic today, but it might can tie in somehow. I feel like the more aware we become of God's gift of time to us to be good stewards of it for him, the faster it goes. I don't know how that works exactly, but it definitely seems like it. I feel like I blink and months are going by.
Yeah.
So, but All right, Brock, we're going to talk today about your crowd and anybody coming into your age, but it's relevant for me in my 40s. So we can speak from kind of both ends of the spectrum a little bit and share what you've experienced, what you see daily, what I've experienced, and what I see looking back, starting in my early 20s and thinking about what money was. But it kind of started from, I think you said, a podcast you were listening to, but it keeps coming up as you had conversations about how we view money and investing and gambling and saving and those kind of things. So why don't you start us off with where you want to lead in with that?
Yeah. I have all these conversations with people all across the country, and we were at a conference not too long ago where Michael Phelps was talking, and I'm pretty sure I've already delivered this once, and with another advisor that I'm working with, I'm helping him build out like a 12-day get your finances in order program, and
Yeah.
it's a lot of fun. But we kept coming back to the fact of, like, in today's world, when you look at finance, because of social media, which is the worst thing that's ever happened to finance, all you ever see are snapshots of the highlights of people's lives. You don't see all the in-betweens. And so when people see that and they hear about different stories, everybody's thought process around finances can pretty much be summed up in they want to get the fastest route possible to massive amounts of money. Like, that's it. Like, that is like the goal for most people in America.
Yes.
And it's not a bad goal, but is it reality? Probably not. Right? They hear the stories of the lottery. They hear the stories of investing in a moonshot and changing their lives. Like, that is what everybody wants. But the reality is, and this is where I tie it back to Michael Phelps, is somebody was asking Michael Phelps about what made him so great, like what made him different. And he talked about the fact, like, it wasn't like he was so much different than everybody else. He won his races in like 100th of a second. What created the greatness for him and how he defined greatness is just the daily stacking of habits every single day, which create greatness. So he just did the same thing over and over again. And I think that is what we've got to bring it back to when it comes to wealth building. Is wealth takes time. That is why we have these equations and part of math called the time value of money. It takes time to increase the value of money you have. Without consistency, without time, without growth, money doesn't go anywhere.
Brock, that reminds me of something that I was listening to the other day that I really appreciated, and this is perfect. So Nelson Nash is telling a story about this idea of thinking long range and not being afraid to capitalize, which is what you're saying, Brock. So first, let's say Brock graduates high school. You told me a story, and you can share it if you want to or not, but you reminded me of this. You graduate high school and you come into the market. Okay. You're green, you're ready to go. How can I take money to make money? And the first thing that, let's go back and coach ourselves up, is I would say, let's get real clear on what wealth is in your current version of your age, your experiences, where you live, what you're doing. Even Brock at 18 playing college baseball, that would have helped me. On one piece of paper in your little simple brain, Brandon, write down what wealth means to you.
Mm-hmm.
Would be way different than what it means today, but I'd at least had a start.
Massively different. Yeah.
And so that's first. The second piece is, Nelson talked about this all the times. Words matter and proper classification of words. Investing and saving, investing and gambling. Walk through those differences from what you've seen, what you've experienced, what I've experienced, because they are misrepresented in the market and on social media all the time.
Yeah, totally. And this also came from a podcast with Morgan Housel and Chris Williamson just recently, where they were talking about some of finance stuff. But it talks about the fact that when young men start in the world, investing is gambling to them because it's based off of sports gambling, or I can hit this big. I know how to bet on this stock and then sell it high, because that's what everybody is told. Buy low, sell high. And that's what their game is played all along the way. And so when you think about this, right? Or let me back up. If you look it up, like therapist's office are full of young men right now freaking out because they've lost all their money because they've been sports gambling or investing and doing crazy things with investing, which you can do, but losing all their money. And as we were talking about that, I thought this is actually hilarious because that was me at 18. When I graduated high school, I remember I figured out what E-Trade was. I got on E-Trade and I put $500 in E-Trade. I'm thinking, man, if I do this and it goes to this, I'll sell, I'll be rich, moonshot, I'm good to go. Everything works.
Yep.
And I did it. I didn't understand any of it. It kept losing money. I gave up. I left it, came back a couple years later, figured out it was worth $30. And what I have just found out recently is I'm not the only one that does that or has done that or looks at money that way when they become old enough to invest and do these things. Because number one, Morgan Housel just talked about it and showed the data and talked about how many young men are struggling with this. But I kid you not, on Wednesday nights where I have 10th graders, they even talk about this.
Yes.
This one kid was like, yeah, I do the stock market. I know how to do trading and I know how to do this. I've lost $20,000. And I'm like, you have no idea what you're doing. You are gambling. There's nothing to investing. And so I think if we broke those 3 words down, right, you've got saving. Saving is the act of putting money in a place that cannot lose. Investing is going through the fundamentals, the technical analysis, and actually looking at something and doing the proper due diligence to learn that this is a good deal or this is a bad deal, and I'm either going to do it or not going to do it.
Yep.
And then gambling is just saying, that looks good today, I'll take it and I'll hope for the best. And I think I can get a moonshot.
Yeah.
Most people live in that gambling space.
100%. And I would even say that, I love this thought from it's biblical, but Myron Golden says it this way, that there's 2 sides to everything. There can't be one side of a piece of paper, one side of a coin. So there's also 2 thought processes with saving that have evolved in my thinking. There's saving in the traditional sense of where I can keep money. Checking account, saving account, qualified plan. There's not many places, truthfully, in the grand scheme. We could write them down on one piece of paper. And then there's saving money by paying premiums and a whole life policy. And those are 2 different types of savings because of what you just said, Brock. You said, paraphrasing, to save money is the locking in knowing you won't lose dollars, is the way my brain hears that. So if we're going to get real simplistic, if I save money in a traditional checking account and I spend out of it, then I'm not really saving. I'm storing, but I'm not building up. So I think this is where getting clear on what saving, investing, and gambling is. And I would say that, you just made something real clear to me. Because the internet is so the norm now, 16-year-olds have access to walking into casinos, essentially.
Yep.
Because there's somebody in the market that is receiving their misguided ambition.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't disappear. It transferred from their account to somebody else's.
Yeah.
And so I think what you're really saying, Brock, is, or what I hear you saying is, let's not just talk about the problem. What's the solution? Well, as parents, it's learning that having a system that you can course correct more quickly to be in alignment with what wealth means is more important than thinking you're going to hit that home run, every time you step into the batter's box.
Yeah.
And then sharing that with our children.
Agreed. Because money's not what we want. Like at the end of the day, if you actually boil it down,
great point.
Not what we want, right? It's the outcome that the money could provide to us if we got there. But most of the time, and this was something that Morgan Housel stated on this podcast as well, is most people in retirement planning spend too much time figuring out what to do with the money and too little time figuring out what they're going to do in retirement.
Yeah.
And he said the only equation that he put in his book, The Art of Spending, was independence plus purpose.
Yeah.
That was the only one. Because most people, what they actually want at the end of the day with all their money is independence.
Yes.
But if all you have is independence but with no purpose, that is when they started citing some things, which we've talked about.
Yeah.
When you get sick and you die early and you retract and you do things that you don't want to do. But when you have purpose, you fall in line with what you actually want. And that independence becomes greater because it's tied to a purpose. And they talked a lot about the FIRE movement, the Financial Independence Retire Early community.
Yep.
There were so many people who retired at 28, did it for a couple years, and fell in massive depression and went back to work because they didn't know what to do. Yeah, they needed that purpose within work.
Brock, we don't shy away from saying that Jesus is our Lord and Savior and we need him. If we're created in the image of the creator of the heavens and the earth, and it's to be his hands and feet and to love him with all our heart, soul, and mind and love others as we love ourselves. Like that's how I kind of simplified in my mind. Then it is silly to think we wouldn't have a purpose on this earth. And that retiring to not have to be working towards a purpose is really just it's like saying I've got oceanfront property in Arizona. It's an idea, because here's a great example this past week. Nate and I've been having a lot of conversations about, and this came from, I read Piece of Land by Brent Turner in a couple of days, and it really opened my mind to thinking about things that we should be talking about more than anything. And it's not the conversations we do have, because those become rote conversations that are kind of surface level. It's the conversations we're not having. And so I brought this into one of my conversations with a family member the other day who I think very highly of. He's around my age. And as we're sitting there looking at all of his numbers, Brock, as you were saying, it's not really about the money. I asked him a couple of questions and I said, hey, what do you bring in a month after all the time and the energy and the effort you trade? And he tells me. And I said, okay, would you be doing this exactly the way you're doing it if that money was coming in automatically? And he's like, no, I would do something maybe similar, but I keep the job because of the flexibility and the schedule and the benefits. I said, very fine. I said, how far out do you see yourself working? And he's like, I could see myself going until 60 doing what I'm doing now. Key piece. You have to be aware of what you're doing now. You can't just go, I know for sure it's going to get me there if it's not. And he's like, and then I said, will you be able to have that amount of income coming in at 60 if nothing changed? And he's like, I don't know. And I said, so if you could do that at age 50, just by changing a little bit of how you think and how money is allotted and flows and moves, what would that be worth exploring? And he's like, absolutely. Is that even possible? I'm like, from all the things I've seen and all your numbers so far, yeah, it's definitely possible. So why do people stay with what they've been doing? It's because we don't get around people that ask us questions to make us think if we could do something different. And that's what you're talking about with investing, Brock. Reframe it. Take yourself at 18, and I'll take myself at 18, and go back and tell yourself 3 key things that you would tell yourself now that matter more than anything else related to money, but they'll also relate to life, about what you know now about money that you would do differently. Top 3 things that you would say, Brock, no matter what you do, you have to do this.
Invest in yourself first.
Okay.
Structure your cash flow the right way.
Okay.
And learn how to be generous.
Bro, I'm going to steal yours a little bit because I didn't have a framework of where I wanted to go. You can never overinvest in yourself as long as you know whose you are, because that'll get you around the people that you're drawn to and the mindsets and the conversations. When you do that, your generous awareness will become more and more clear. You'll become more aware of how being generous is a gift from the Lord, not a responsibility that you don't want to do.
Yeah.
And then build everything around having financially a plan that doesn't require the snakes and the dragons. This is me, which is banks and Wall Street at all. This is me, because it's not necessary to live a life full of peace if you control your time and your schedule and your energy and your effort. And then build a system, like you just said, around all that. It would involve no gambling in the market for me, from experience, almost 20 years in now of the market and all that. It would involve paying as many whole life premiums as I could possibly pay on as many people as possible that I had insurable interest in. And it would involve me understanding rate of control. How much money we're controlling that's flowing through our life is more important than the rate of return on a screen. If I can go back and redo those things. The crazy thing is, Brock, I can now clearly see, because of pain and experience, that I'm confident I'd be a better steward of the gifts God's given us. Now, we're human. We have sin nature. We screw up. We forget things. We have to be reminded of hard lessons, all those things. But I love what you said earlier. It's not the money that people want. If anybody hears anything we say today, it's not the amount of money that we or people want. It's the thing that they think the money needs to do for them. Or if they don't have clarity on what that money to do for them, and then they stop doing that thing that defines them, they lose their purpose because it was an idol, so to speak. And so, Brock, that's a fascinating thing that you've got sophomores talking about losing 20 grand in the market. But it really doesn't surprise me, because I can tell you with certainty, if they would have let me walk into a casino to gamble at 18, I would have.
Yeah.
Because there's a thrill there.
Yeah.
And you don't talk about the swings and misses. You only talk about the home run you hit.
Yep. Yep.
Man.
Yep. But I think it's like nobody's immune to this. This isn't like this also came from the podcast. The guy who created behavioral finance, like the psychology of behavioral finance, somebody asked him, he was like, so after learning all this stuff and creating all this data and looking at all this data and pulling it all together, what has improved in your life, or what have you taken away from this? He's like, nothing. Because he's human.
Yep.
We're all human.
Yep.
Like even I, who came from a home and a dad who knows finance.
Yes.
When I got my first job when I was 18, I remember I got a $500 check a week.
Yep.
Like that was my just salary. And then I'd have my commissions on top of that. Dude, when you first get that paycheck, you've never had that much money in your life before.
Yep.
You don't know what that is as an 18-year-old or a 16-year-old, or like you just know, hey, I've got money coming in. I'm going to do something with it, because you're in control. You're the big dog now. You know what you can do. And, I think back to it, I did a watch subscription where I'd get a new watch every month. I'd do a box subscription with golf. So every month I'd get some new clothes, right? Because the reality was of like, oh, I'm good now. I got money coming in. I can do this. I'm fine. But
yep.
That's not how Like being a good steward of these items is not just throwing money at the wall and buying whatever you can just because you can buy it. And I think that's what even, one of my mentors, as my income has grown over the years, he's like, just because you can buy something doesn't mean you need to buy it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's in direct alignment, Brock. I'm learning this on a similar lane. We're on the same path, different lanes. It's also true, just because I have money to invest in something, it doesn't mean I should, which is kind of how we started this thing.
Correct.
And Nelson always said, opportunity finds capital. Yep. Man, if I could help anybody understand this, there are different types of capital based off of who controls the rules.
Yeah.
And if you have ever owed money to any institution in a way that didn't go well, and I was having a conversation with somebody yesterday who's been in this world for a long time, and he talks about getting his Heine suit off. Well, if I'd have heard that 10 years ago, I'd have chuckled and been like, who the heck gets sued? Well, I've been sued.
Everybody.
Yeah. And what I got sued for reminds me of how important it is to teach what we teach of having a plan, not if things don't go according to plan, but when things don't go according to plan.
There is a lawsuit, 2 lawsuits every minute in America.
Wow.
And, something that you got to think about is, I was spending some time with some guys, and this one advisor, he is the advisor to some of the wealthiest families in all of America.
Yep.
Like that's his role. And he was like, dude, if there's anything that I could tell anybody, have more liquidity than you think that you need. And just realize no plan is going to go to plan. It's going to fall apart. Something's going to go wrong. And, like you said, just because you have money doesn't mean you need to invest. Not every deal is going to be a good deal, because every bad deal started with every crappy. Garrett tells me a little bit differently.
Yeah. I could tell you were trying to find PC words.
Every bad deal out there starts with a great story. And the reality is, if you think this is the greatest investment to ever hit your block, there's going to be another one coming up right behind it. It always happens. And in a group where I know that we see deals constantly,
yes,
they even tell us, hey, this looks like the best deal in the world. It's going to come. There's going to be another one right behind it. Yep. Don't fret over the fact that you might invest in this or you might not.
Yeah, that's a great.
If it's causing you to lose sleep, if it's causing you peace of mind, move on.
And Brock, you just brought up a great point. A fourth I'd go back and add is have a framework for any amount of money that you're going to spend, besides your daily expenses that are not crazy. So for Nate and I, and we forget this all the time, is it pleasing to the Lord? Well, that pretty much nips it in the bud right there. If we're doing business with somebody that seems shady or lack of integrity or, that. Number 2, what's the best case that could happen? There's that example of what you just described. There's always, it's so easy to go. I mean, every time I show up to the baseball park, I think I'm going to go 4 for 4 with 6 doubles.
Of course.
Right?
Maybe a triple.
Maybe a triple, and only 4 at bats. So the mind likes to lean into positive because it's comfortable and it's exciting, when you're thinking about that. But you also then go third, what's the worst case thing that could happen?
Yep.
And 4th, are we okay with worst case?
Yeah. And that comes from the road less stupid of,
yes,
what's the good outcome? What's the bad outcome? Can I live with the bad outcome?
Yep. That's exactly right.
And then, we have principles for a reason.
Yes.
Right? And there is the spend less than you make.
Yep.
Right? That's number 1. Just spend less than you make. Right? Hopefully you can save 15% of your income. Right? Put it aside. Store up provisions so that in the future, when something comes along, you can handle it.
Almost and above sounds like that's out of scripture.
It is. We talked about this in our giving class the other night. And so you have that. But once you have stored up your provisions and you are taken care of, it's time to take care of other people. and other things. And so, I get this from Wealth Without Wall Street guys of where you put your money. You should ask yourself, does this increase my income or does it reduce an expense? Those should be the only two questions you ask yourself.
And Brock, we just got to hear those guys speak at the think tank, and it was so refreshing. And I almost felt silly not thinking of this myself. You ever have that thought? Like when you watch something, you go, why don't I make it that simple?
Yeah.
It literally was like a kid's piece of paper, like you do at school. And it literally had 4 things on the left, 4 things on the top. And the question basically was, basic questions about peace of mind related to money. Happy face, sad face. Where are you? Because we like to overcomplicate it, but I can give that to my kids and get clarity from them just as much as I can do it myself.
Yep.
And so, Brock, I'm reading this book called Effortless, and it really just talks about maybe it's our thinking about how we think when we have tough things that come up. Just like, I can't figure out how to get ahead with my money. Well, it might not be the fact that you have a money problem. It might be a principle problem. Instead of it talks about it this way, a method problem. So think of the internet and ideas and all these things that sound so great. Those are methods that you could try. It's quick hitters. Oh, you're going to feel good. You can do this. A principle is what we've been describing foundationally.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to take longer than we thought. It's going to cost more. And there's going to be more things happen that we aren't expecting than they are. And if it on occasion goes exceptionally well, and we make a lot of money real fast, that is not the norm.
Correct.
And if you can get those principles, what's awesome, Brock, is those principles work in relationships. They work in business partnerships. They work in interacting with your children one day. They work in talking to your teenager who wants to date. They're foundational. And that's what I'm always drawn to the longer that we do this.
That's why they're called principles.
Bingo. They are foundational. So if we could go back, Brock, and maybe we'll do another episode on this, what would be the core principles? What would be the foundational principles? What would be the bedrock if we were starting over? And even though I don't want to do this, and it's not ever a deal of, oh, I wish I could have, I'm past that. I'm very at peace with like not thinking. Our struggles have become our test and our testimony.
Right.
But if I could equate that to how much more money I would have, Lord help us, Brock.
Yep.
Wow.
I think it's very simple. The first thing you got to do is figure out what's the life that you want.
There you go.
Write it down, but realize that that's going to change over time.
Yeah.
If I went back and looked at what I wrote down for the vision of my life 10 years ago,
yeah,
I would be astonished at what's going on now.
You might even be a little ashamed.
Yeah.
Me too.
Write it down. The next is for me, this is the principle that I would have, and I've seen it everywhere, is give away the first 10%. Whether you're religious or not, just give away 10%. The first 10%. Spend less than you make, hopefully saving 15%. Store up 3 to 6 months of expenses. Protect against all catastrophic risk, and then go invest your money.
Yeah. And get clear on what you invest in and why. Because Brock, now I can tell you with certainty that the best investments that Nate and I can make is in and through our business and in and through our families and in and through ourselves.
Correct.
And I'd add one more. Get real clear on where wealth is stored, the environment. Because a lot of people, when they hear that, they think, oh, savings account, checking account, I already got that. No. I mean, you can do that. But when we store wealth in a whole life policy, we just feel like we have a lot more advantage and runway to create as we go. So, Brock, that was good. If you are just starting out in your world of money and you're, trying to figure out how to really build clarity, I think what Brock said is the most important thing. What kind of life do you want to live? And know it'll change. But get real clear on that and start building principles around that. that are sound, and go from there. So, Brock, if we could go back and coach ourselves up, man, I don't know if I'd have listened. I'd like to think I would have, but I don't know if I would have. And I understand that's
I was in front of the information and didn't listen totally. So
yeah, that's true. That's a good point. And that's why we love working with, the mindsets of people who are like, hey, I've tried to do this on my own. And I realize that the more I understand this, the less I understand things. And it's good to be around people who are experts in different fields. So on the next one, hopefully we'll have Nate with us. I'll have my hat back on. I won't have the Flowerty Beach shirt
I won't
on.
be here.
You won't be here. So we'll be sure we say something that makes it feel like you're there. And then hopefully you'll get to go play on that potential golf course, and we'll get to hear about that the next time when we come back.
Yeah.
So, all right, Brock. Appreciate you, brother. We hope everybody enjoyed. Call to action. I'm just going to call it like it is. If you heard any of this and you're like, man, I wish I could take some action on that, take action. What's the worst thing that's going to happen? You're going to find out something new that is or isn't for you. So that's reaching out to us. That's reading Become Your Own Banker. That's getting on Nate or Brock's schedule. That is taking an action that requires you to do something different than what you've been doing. And we'd love to visit with you and see if we can bring value to you. And if we can't, at least we got to meet each other. Have a blessed day.